Hey, you're watching Half Asian Tarot. Just reminding you the giveaway for the month of October is the Urban Tarot. So I've been featuring that in every reading this month. It's pretty popular. I feel like people have been really curious about it. The last reading I did had a real interesting message from it. You had to watch it to really fully appreciate. But it did kind of, it had some interesting insights about the election, we'll say that. I'm going to pull a couple cards from here. If you're interested in entering the giveaway for this deck, it's in the October monthly reading. I'll link it here. It's a new reality bubbles up. So it's like there's a new reality bubbling up, and for October, and oh my gosh, this isn't good. It was also the Harvest Moon reading, but so I got 3 cards that came up. We got the 7 of Swords, which in this deck is futility. We got disappointment, which is the 5 of Cups. And then we got the Therapist. So it's not a good combination that's coming through. The last reading that I did was really, really, really dramatic. I mean, it was probably the most dramatic reading I've ever done. So it's interesting that this comes on the heels of that reading. In the traditional deck, this 7 of Swords often talks about deception, which can often be like self-deception. And when someone's not being honest with themselves, they're usually not being honest with the people around them. So it's kind of like living in a reality bubble. And so there was a lot about sort of enlightenment coming to this, false reality. But this also just like, if you're in like one of these bubbles, things can seem futile because it's like not in alignment with like how things really are. And so it's just like this hopeless situation, And then we have disappointment, which this is the 5 of Cups in their traditional deck. So oftentimes it's like somebody is like, there's 3 cups spilled and there's 2 cups behind. So there's actually all this potential standing behind the person, but they're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on the 3 cups that are spilled. And so, they're focused on the loss. So this is like a card of disappointment, like things aren't turning out how you wanted them to, And oftentimes when going through a moment like this, we end up in the therapist's office. We have the Queen of Cups. So this is someone who's centered in their emotions and operating from a balanced place. So it's interesting because we have really like some sort of bubble, like how things are being seen and how they really are, like they're not in alignment, and so this is causing to like a big disappointment. And then there's gonna have to be some work done to like repair that. So I think a situation like this could for sure fuel the kind of drama that came out in yesterday's reading. So I'm going to go to the Mystical Shaman now to get some more perspective on what's going on. But yeah, this looks like a little sad, I mean, it's always sad when things don't turn out how you think they're going to. Okay, so keep this going. Okay. Okay, so we have many paths. So this is a card about kind of trying to be in alignment with something that's bigger than yourself and the inspiration that comes from that. So like the example that it gives in the book is it talks about these two stonemasons, and they're basically doing the same thing. Like they're both laying stones down. But one of them is kind of inspired by this larger vision. So you ask one of them what he's doing, and he's like, I'm laying stones, you know, like whatever. But then you ask the other one, and who's doing the same thing, and he's like, I'm building a cathedral, you know. He's become part of something larger than himself, and there's like power and there's inspiration in that. So that's, and then we have fire. So this is a card of like transformation, and it came out in the really dramatic reading from a couple days ago, the Twin Towers, I believe. The London Bridge is falling down. But this is a card of like a phoenix rising from the ashes, and a card of transformation, you know, like when you walk through the fire, you are transformed, and often into another element, like water goes to air, you know, wood goes to ash. So this speaks to like a super transformative experience. And then we have the Jaguar. So the Jaguar is sort of like at the top of the food chain, you know, like this is someone who has come into command of their light and their dark aspects, you know, and is sort of like at peace with that. The Jaguar can traverse the darkest recesses of the Amazon, and the tops of mountains, you know, but like the Jaguar like knows kind of who he is, and he's in command of all of that, the shadow and the light, you know, and because of that, that's what makes the Jaguar sort of like the boss, you know, by being the boss of itself, you know, of its light and its dark, you know, being in command of that internal struggle that we all have to work with, you know. So this kind of speaks to some transformative moment, and it's almost like it's like Clark Kent turning into a superhero. Like that's kind of what I'm getting, because it's just like becoming part of something, a destiny, part of his destiny that's larger than him, you know, and in doing that becomes Superman, you know. This is a really interesting reading, especially after all of this. But, you know, oftentimes superheroes like go through these really difficult circumstances, and that's how they get their superpowers, you know. So it's just like almost like this tragedy had to happen in order to test this person to come into their power, you know. So I'm going to go to the Muse to pick some overall energies. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I don't really arrange the videos on this channel in a typical way. I'm actually not really trying to be a tarot reader. I'm a vegan cheesemaker. I'm on hiatus. I love reading tarot for fun, but I'm not really trying to be a tarot reader. But I do kind of link related videos up here oftentimes, so if, you know, that's one way to browse the channel. I also put things in playlists with related themes, and that goes down there. Okay, so at the bottom we have the Ace of Cups. So this is a new beginning in the realm of love and emotions. But then we also have the Ace of Inspiration. So this is like a passionate, fiery new start, you know, and it comes right under this card of coming into alignment with some higher purpose or destiny. Then we have the Wheel, which interestingly falls right on top of Fire, which this talks about this totally transformative event, you know, like things are changing. However they were, they're not going to be. And then the This is so interesting how these fell out. So, and then we got the Five of Inspiration, which is like the Five of Wands. And this talks about conflict, you know. And it's interesting because that fell right on top of the Jaguar. And I was talking about how the Jaguar becomes this superhero, basically the superhero of the Amazon, by coming into command of that conflict, you know. So it's interesting that that fell out. It's like double messages, which is like really really weird. I'm going to go to the Golden Art Nouveau to see if I can get a little bit more clarification, because this is sort of like, what I'm getting so far is this is like a coming of age moment, you know. It's just like a, you know, when Clark Kent figures out that he is a superhero, or he's like pushed into some corner where he has to save some kid out of a burning building, and like that's just, he's like driven to that destiny. So anyways, I'm just going to pull a few cards. Okay, at the bottom we have the Ten of Pentacles, which this is like a card of dynasty, of generational wealth. And we have a whole thread on here called Dynasty, and it's interesting because it's all about this King of Pentacles who's like downtrodden, has to go through this spiritual lesson to ascend, become a superhero, become the emperor. And he's like the phoenix. It's, the thread's called Phoenix, rising from the ashes. So it's interesting that there's like these references coming through on this. But we have this person who is stepping into their destiny and this passionate, fiery start. And it's interesting because right on top of that we have the Hierophant, which is like almost like this institution. Like it's almost like he's being ordained, you know. And then we have this Three of Pentacles, which is a new foundation. So it's almost like, I am knighting you, superhero A, or, you know, whatever, you know, I'm kind of getting that. And then on top of this, walking through the fire, this change, we have this cup of love that's being offered. And we have this Eight of Swords, is like this fear and anxiety, like not being able to see your way forward, you know, because you're kind of blindfolded, and you're just like, you know, maybe oppressed or traumatized maybe, you know. But it's like whatever that situation is changing, and like there's this reward coming to this tormented soul, you know, which is interesting. And then we have, on top of this conflict, which is making this conflict is like driving this person into their destiny. It's like the burning building with the kid, you know. We have Justice, and we have the Seven of Pentacles. So there's like, we're planting seeds for the future, and like whatever this situation, this conflict is that's driving this like rise of the Firebird, it's coming to some sort of justice, and that's paving the way for this new way forward, you know, new seeds for the future. So this seems really apropos because like the last reading that I did was like this super dramatic reading about like everything falling apart, and like it makes sense because it's just sort of like there's this sort of like story of this person who had to like step into this superhero role, and in doing so they become this hero and step into this new future, which seems like a appropriate resolution for the disaster that struck in the last reading. Okay, so I just picked some more cards about how we're going to move through this energy, and I got Awakening, which is like this karmic reckoning card, which has come out in almost every reading this week. It's been this huge theme. We've got the Hanged Muse, and we got the Muse of Inspiration, so the King of Wands. So this is like, this karmic reckoning is happening, you know, like this situation is is kind of like resolving whatever this drama was. The burning building, like its fire is getting put out. And we have the Hanged Muse. So this is a person who's kind of like taking a step back and having, you know, a look at what's going on, you know, from a step back. But they're going to have to make some sort of sacrifice in order to move through this situation. But it looks like this goes right into the Muse of Inspiration, which is kind of like the King of Wands in the traditional deck, but this is all women, and it's like these angels with their wings, you know, and it's like almost like stepping into this throne, you know. But this is like the King of Wands is like a manifester. It's like someone who's like fully empowered to like make things happen in the world. I mean, this is like kind of like the archetype of a superhero, you know. So it's interesting that it's like there's this reckoning that's happening. There's a sacrifice that's having to be made, and then like stepping into power. Wow, this is interesting. Especially and particularly in the context of all the other readings that have been happening leading up to this, because there's been like super dramatic readings. There was one called Deep Blue Ocean, and it was just like all this emotion being unleashed. And then the next reading was London Bridge is falling down, like the world as you know it is just like going down, like things are changing, like get out of the way, because it's just like everything's blowing up. And then there's this where it's just like this person who's like stepping into their destiny. It's like at the end of Star Wars, you know, like they fought off all these dark forces, and then they go home, and there's this whole ceremony where they become like these revered like heroes, you know. Okay, so we got activated earth, power places, ley lines, trust where you're led. So this is definitely about stepping into one's destiny. It's happening. Good luck.